Aloha Kaku. Welcome to our very first Mo'olelo Monday here on the Del Aragon channel, formerly known as Real Paranormal Oahu. What a mouthful. So, before we get started today, I just want to just point out the fact that some of you guys might just be listening to the ranting that I'm going to be doing for the next however long. But yeah, I caught a cold, and apparently I've never understood how a person could get a cold in their eye until I of course got something in my eye, and it's going away. It was much worse over the weekend. I was gonna try and film this video during the weekend, so I didn't have to do this at work. But yeah. Anyway, things got messed up because of this whole situation with my eye. It swelled up to the point where I could hardly see, and you know, using my medicinals, placing a tea bag over my eye for the past few days, it finally brought the swelling down, and I can actually see. And it's not like it's not really huge. I mean, normally I got these bags under my eyes, but like this one was like super big, and so yeah. Anyway, I'm just getting over something, and now I'm just trying to make up for lost time because as I said last week, I'm gonna get this Mo'olelo Monday kicked off, and I don't want this to be another deterrent because everything I try to do to better myself in in my life, it always seems to have some kind of blockade, and it's probably because it's like self-manifested. I kind of bring it upon myself, perhaps through reasons that I don't feel worthy of advancing. But that kind of stuff is I'm power ready with that kind of stuff. It's over. I don't want to see myself in that light anymore. I'm moving up and onward. So that's one of the reasons why I came up with the change of my brand from Real Paranormal Oahu, which was a very wordy channel name. And the reason why I decided to go with Real Paranormal Oahu was because I wanted a channel that spoke about paranormal activity. And at the time, YouTube was a very accessible medium. So getting onto this channel was a lot of fun. Of course, I didn't have a lot of time that I could give to the channel as much as I wanted to. I wanted to talk about the paranormal. I wanted to talk about the different events, tours, and even investigations and even like stories that experiences that I went through. I wanted to share all those kinds of things on this channel, and I wanted to make sure that people understood it was real stuff. Like these things actually happen to me, to other people, real stories, real places, that are haunted around Hawaii, centralizing around Oahu, and other stories that I'd received from different islands. But basically, that's the purpose of the name of the channel, and I realized it was pretty wordy, it was pretty lengthy. But now, at this point that I've gotten my own stories published, it feels like this is kind of like my new medium that I am pushing my experiences and incidences that happen in my life. I'm able to go ahead and move them through this type of medium, and it's kind of taken off to the point where I feel it's kind of like a therapy, I guess, because all the things that I'm writing in this book, kind of just having to speak about it is something I feel takes a lot off of me. Having other people read it and connect with it, that's the fun thing. Is after I get people who've read the story and enjoy it, after I get that, it really builds a sense of pride in me. And not to say that I'm like proud in a bad way, but it's something that I can be proud of because I never thought that I would or that I could ever write a story. So that changed because we created this publisher's name here, Del Aragon. That's my last name, and that's what we decided. That's what I decided. I wanted to be known for me and my family. Um, my last name is actually Aragon, but when I got married to Kiara, I took a portion of her name. Her middle name is Del. She's named after her grandparents. I believe very much that we should give thanks and pay homage to our ancestors and give them the props that they deserve, you know. And so I took the Del from her name, added it to the Aragon, and now we're known as the Del Aragon. So that's our family name, and there's only four of us in the world, which is awesome. I think that's pretty cool. So when people say Del Aragon, we'll know exactly who they're talking about. They're talking about us. But yeah, so our books, publishing name, and everything is all under Del Aragon. So I figured, well, maybe it's time for us to, since I've been talking so much about my stories and trying to get them out into the what do you call it? Into social media. We're using this vehicle as a social media source now. I figured I might as well just kind of blend everything together and just go with the term Del Aragon. It's a lot easier. It's who I am. I've been adding things more to this channel that don't necessarily revolve around the real anymore, because even though my stories are based on things that happen to me in real life, I created fictional characters and places so that it could be more entertaining to read my experiences through a story that's more like plays out like kind of like a movie or something. Entertainment, basically. And speaking of entertainment, one of those things was Ancient Evil. The Ancient Evil was probably one of my first fictional stories that I based upon real experiences in my life. And a lot of the things that are inside that story, the 5 different episodes that my family had created in the Ancient Evil, each one of those paranormal activity events, those things have actually happened, you know, and were important roles in my spiritual and paranormal path, you know, my upbringing, I guess. So it's been a pretty big part of my life since I was born, all the way till to today. This spiritual aspect, this non-religious spiritual, I should say, because there are spiritual things that deal with, you know, the Lord above, and you know, everything that's here that's created is created by God. But these other things that happen in our real life, you know, it's always been an interest, an intrigue to me as to exactly what it is. You know, is it made up through the energies of the people around us? Is it made up by the energies that are within us? Is it caused by wires that are leaking energy that manifest creatures that we can't normally see? Or is it causing us to hallucinate these fantastical beings? And what else could it be? You know, any kind of influence from the outside is going to change the way we see our world around us. So that's one of those questions that would follow me as I grew up, because I never felt truly comfortable with saying or talking about certain things that I experienced growing up to my family or friends. You know, it's just kind of always thought people would think it was crazy because it was a normal conversation. Well, it was a really normal conversation until I met my really good friend Chris Takamori, and that guy is something else. He's my best friend from preschool, and we stayed together all the way up until we reached high school, when he went over to a different school after being at Kailua for a short while, and he finished up his high school at, I believe, Kalaheo. But yeah, we're like a tag team of bozos, you know, just clowns. But yeah, I really respect the guy. Smart guy, ambitious. He was like a brother from another mother. I just I couldn't imagine what my life would be without Chris. You know, he's such an awesome dude. And there's times that I think back on how things were when we were younger and how we started to kind of drift apart. Not really drift apart with friendships, but drift apart with our likes and our passions. Yeah. So I always knew he was gonna go someplace great. I always knew he was gonna be something, but I haven't gotten to talk to him in a long while. And I every time I think about him, I pray that he's doing well. Him and his wife Charla. So anyway, this so that's me in a nutshell, and why our channel is the way it is today. What I really wanted to talk to you guys about was my role in Spooky Kine Investigations. And Spooky Kine Investigations was actually the first time I had ever experienced a relief in my life that was monumental in a way that it shaped me, and it kind of gave me more why can't I think of the word? It gave me more self-esteem, I guess I want to say. Yeah, not respect for myself, but like, I guess courage too. It kind of made me feel that I wasn't crazy, like, in a way, you know? Because okay, so let me break it down to how I got involved with Spooky Kine Investigations. So right before I jumped into the Spooky Kine Investigations group, I was actually working at Kayulani Elementary, and I was doing a Hawaiian Studies class, and I was also teaching art, and I was also going to school at the UH system during that same time, and it didn't take long before there was a +1, before my family started growing. And I knew it at this time that we would not be able to do much if my wife was out on maternity and just off of me working at the school. And so I needed to put my education, which is a really difficult thing for me to first of all get into. Academics has never been something that I could really get into. My brain would take me out of the teachings, the lectures and whatnot all the time. Like, I have a really hard time focusing on like when a teacher is lecturing. I have an easier time learning when it's like hands-on, or when there's a lot more visually to stimulate my brain. Because other than that, I'm off in la la land. I go to the clouds and I think about where I want to be more. I think about things that I want to be doing more. I just start drawing pictures and doodling inside my textbooks. And so, yeah, something I used to get in trouble a lot for growing up. But yeah, so I had to put going to school on the side so that I can actually make more money. And so I picked up a second job at Fort Street Mall. I was working at Guardsmark, which is a security firm in Hawaii. And I had experience with security. I mean, like, really, how difficult is it to be a security officer, you know? But I'm not saying, you know, that that's an easy job or anything like that, but what I'm saying is, like, it's not tough to get into. I mean, security officers come and security officers go. But yeah, so while I was walking because I was a patrolman, they had all the other people working at we were with the BYU, the Brigham Young University security. So Guardsmark would post up at the different buildings where there were classes being held. And for me, I was the patrol officer. I was the one that roamed between all the different buildings and made sure that there was nothing amiss. and I enjoyed it because if I ended up standing in one place for too long, I would have gotten bored and my brain would have been gone again. But um, the walking from place to place made it so much easier for me to kind of focus on things. And of course, my brain wanders too, even when I'm walking around. But it was always about a creative thing, like creating something. And a lot of the times it was thinking back, thinking back about all the things that happened to me in my life, paranormal included. So what I noticed was these buildings that I was going into at the time had some very strange things that were happening, things that I couldn't explain. And so there was this guy, his security guard that used to work at the bottom of the bookstore. His name is Bob Forbes, and I grew close with that dude. That dude is super cool, but super sweet, super cool guy. And I told him one time I came down. I says, "Hey, is there something up with this building or what?" And he was like, "Oh," and I said, "Yeah, is building haunted or what?" And he was like, "Oh yeah." So I was like, he's just so chill about it. I'm like, "Really?" So he's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." So da 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 da, and he just kind of like told his own tales, and he's telling me about all the different places that he worked at as a security officer inside the area and how they were bizarre too. And I was like, "Oh wow!" So I collected some interesting stories from him, and yeah, and so all the other buildings that I would go to, I'd have some strange things happen in each one of those buildings as well. Stories from each of them, like every building, I have a story, and if not more. And it's funny because I'm traveling. I'm traveling up from the bookstore to come around towards Fort Street again. I was going down. What is it called? Bishop Street. And I'm passing the bank, and I see this huge group of people all wearing, aloha shirts and dressed like, business people. I was like, oh, wonder what they're doing out here, by the stairs. And I could have sworn as I was walking past this group of people, I see a friend of mine, like an old boss, standing in the crowd. And I was like, no, I was thinking to myself, no, that's not him. Because the kind of time that I saw him, he was like clean shaven. Um, of course, he was wearing his nice aloha wear, but I was like looking at him. I was like, gosh, that does look like him. And I already knew that my friend had already gotten married and moved to the mainland, and he moved away from Hawaii. So I was like, nah, that can't be him. Anyway, I believe it was. I don't even want to say it was a week later. I think it was within the same week. I see him again. I see him walking down the walkway, and I stop him and I say, "Hey, Wayne, how's it going?" And he's like, "Oh, hey, Gabe, how's it?" And so I'm like, "Why are you back here?" So he gives me back his he feeds me back his personal histories and what went on, and I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." And he's like, "Oh yeah, so I guess he was just getting ready to get off of work, and they're gonna go hang out someplace." Um, and I was like, "Oh yeah, right on, right on." So I don't know what happened. I don't know why it happened, but he brought up something, and I decided that I was gonna share some stories about the. Oh, I must have been talking about what I do because I was telling him, "Oh yeah, yeah." So I just patrol the area, and I work with Guardsmark, and I says, "Yeah, yeah." So I must have brought up something about the buildings and about them being strange. And he's like, "Oh, by the way, I'm also working in a paranormal research, paranormal investigative group." And I was like, I was like looking at him as a celebrity now because I was just amazed, right? I, I would actually spend a lot of my free time when I had free time watching ghost hunters. I just loved watching ghost hunters because first of all, the ghost hunters would experience things, and I'm not sure. I mean, I know there's controversy and everything behind, um, who they are and what they do. Back in the day, though, it seemed like even what I seen from uh, their evidence, from their footage and stuff, it looked pretty legit. Because I mean, like that's stuff that I would see and I would experience myself. So watching that show, it really helped me with validating who I was inside. And I'm like, okay, but still, you got that small, like, what if it's fake? Like, they could be like, pretending this stuff is real, right? But I mean, still watching that, it made me feel peace in my heart, because I wasn't the only one having this stuff happen to, right? But anyway, um, I seen Wayne, and he was on the street, and I was shocked, and he was telling me he's part of this group, and I was like, oh, that's amazing. I says, look, if you want, I can tell you stories about these buildings that I work in, and I can just let you know what's going on in them if you're interested. And he's like, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. So, and it was so funny because Wayne used to be my boss at a GameStop when I first started working at GameStop, and we never ever once spoke about paranormal activity during our shifts together. Yeah, working with him at GameStop was just it wasn't even like work, it was total playtime. And since he was the assistant manager at the time, it was Brian Young that was our manager, and that guy was cool too. Working with Brian is awesome. He's an amazing man too. But like, it's so weird because Wayne and I had never ever spoken about anything paranormal on any of our shifts, and for me to be experiencing all this stuff in my life, working in a job that I'm now seeing all these things, and of course being all into the ghost hunters, and here he is starting his own paranormal group. I was just like, oh, that is like, Wayne had just become like the coolest dude in my eyes. I was just like, I was smitten, to say the least. And so, we met up again, I think, to talk story, and he actually invited me to become part of the group, and I was just taken aback. I was like, whoa. And I was like, yes, yes, 100 times yes, because to be a part of a paranormal group, that was like a dream come true. I mean, Wayne made my dream come true, because I was just like, yes, I'd love to. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that intrigues me so much. Like, what is it, and where does it come from? Why does it happen? I mean, I wanted to see what this had in store for me. And here's a small, well, I mean, like, if you're family, but for the people that I met through Spooky Kine Investigations, what you probably didn't know is, I actually had no experience at all with even diving into what Oahu was. Not once. Um, Everything that I did, it was either work or school, or, I mean, like, this isn't even school on, like, the good stuff, like you're learning about, like, what it is you want to master in, or get your bachelor's in. It's just like your typical language arts, math, science, language, stuff like that. I mean, like, it was so, like, uninteresting. So I go to school, I go to work, I come home, cook dinner, you know, hang out with my fam and do the whole thing. It was just like this, kind of like I don't want to say it was boring, but it was kind of boring. Like, growing up, we didn't really do much in the way of cultural growth. My entire life was about family. It was just family, family, family. We hung out with our family. We played with our family. We loved our family. Spend all our time going to the beach and camp, right? Celebrated each other's whatever's, accomplishments. It's just birthdays, anniversaries, marriages, deaths. I mean, that's basically what my life was. It's all about family. So if you asked me anything about Oahu, I would have been like, I have no idea. What street is that? Where does this exist? What? That happened where? I'm like, I don't even know where that is. Oh, it's up in Makiki. What the hell's Makiki? Oh, it's in Honolulu. I said, why don't they just say Honolulu then? You have all these small little pockets of all these different places in one place. Just call it one thing. Like, why does it have to be so difficult? But long story short, I know, too late. But long story short, there was a lot of growing that I had to do, a lot of stuff that I didn't know about. And a lot of the times I didn't think that I was worthy of learning anything like this, knowing about certain things, because I was young, and I was always held to a certain level. And I hate to bring this up, but it's kind of funny to me because I look back at my life when I watched this movie recently, they came out with this movie called Deadpool and Wolverine, and Deadpool is trying to join this group, this fantastic group that he thinks can help him in his life, and he gets shut down by the limo driver. Okay, and the limo driver tells this main character of this movie, this guy Deadpool, he tells him that he found his place in the world, and then he lowers his hand. Now you have to find your place. You have to find your place. And Deadpool's face just said it all. Well, actually, the actor Ryan Reynolds said it all when he looked at him, lowering his as he's lowering his hand, and I felt the same way. I felt like, this was my place. This was everyone else's, and it's kind of just like holding everybody up on a pedestal. But I had a lot of growing to do. I'm still immature in the way, not my personality. Like, I could take care of myself. I had to take care of my wife, and I knew I had to go to work, and I knew I had to do this, ABC, XYZ. But it always felt like inside me that, and I tell my wife this all the time, it always felt like I was made for something more. Like I needed to do more. I had so much in here that I wanted to offer, But what I didn't realize was not only did I have things up here that I could offer, but there was also a lot in here that I could offer. And that's when working with the Spooky Kine Investigations really helped me to understand that up here was not, there was nothing wrong with up here. So there was nothing wrong with me sharing in here. So when once I called, gone on my first investigation with Wayne, and of course our group, we had Wayne, which was of course the big boss man. We had Courtney, who was the investigator and writer in the group. We were working with Matt. Matt was our science and investigative portion. And one thing about Matt, he always had like a different perspective, a different way of seeing how something played out in a situation when an event happened. And I always appreciated how he could come up with certain ideas of what things could or could not be, and how things work and whatnot. It kind of really made it feel like super legit, It made the group, everybody's role kind of lifted our group. Like it made it seem so amazing. Like Wayne was a great leader, He had passion, he had compassion, because he worked with the people that were experiencing things. He was you could see it. You could see that he was there to help. Courtney is just the funniest, and she documented and kind of added levity, to the group. And then Matt, of course, his scientific way and his thought process and everything added a new perspective. It was so good. I mean, and then here I am, dude who didn't know very much about anything but his family. Just like, what is it that I do? And so, as we started to grow, as I started to get a bigger role in the group, Wayne considered me the cultural advisor of the Spooky Kine Investigations, and it kind of made me nervous. Yeah, okay, I would teach the Hawaiian studies at the elementary school level. And I'm Hawaiian. Okay, fine. But it's like a Hawaiian who grew up in, I don't know, in Canada, like exactly, or Alaska. How exactly much do they know about Hawaii, being so far away? And what was my excuse? I actually lived on the rock. So how could I not know this stuff? How could I not know where the best fishing places are? How could I not know where the most awesome Simon Bowl is? These things are just like foreign. These things were just foreign to me, because those weren't the kinds of things that I put value into in my life. Those are not the things that I would look out for. Those are not the kind of things that called to me at the time, And so being a part of Spooky Kine changed that a lot. Like, because we'd go to all these different places. We'd go on base. We'd go to different homes and businesses. We'd go onto different trails in nature and look for, different vahipana, different places of interest and special areas, And we learn the history about the site. We learn about the people who work there, the people that frequent the area. It was just, it was like way better than being in a classroom, academically learning about something. Because now you're learning living, the living knowledge is there because you're working with people, you're talking to people. And for me, I have an introverted personality. So, like, being with people is not a bad thing. I mean, I enjoy being with people. It's just that I take a long time to get over these investigations and especially since we're dealing with the spiritual things and whatnot. So I'd be knocked out after we do certain things, and it's not just because we stayed up late, 2, 3 in the morning, gathering evidence and going over it, looking for analysis on those different videos and audio clips and whatnot. But it was just like draining on me because my battery needs to be filled by being alone and being within my art. I needed to do my art. That was my thing to recharge my battery. So yeah, being with the group, really watching how they worked together and how we communicated with each other was a huge benefit in my life. And I don't know how I can thank Wayne for making me a part of that group and opening my eyes to seeing a bigger picture. Like, I'm so grateful for that. Like, I would have never had that experience had he not asked me to become part of that group. It was one of the biggest turning points in my life, and it built my self-esteem, my confidence, my courage into going places, to doing things, and to trying things, because this ambition started to burn within me. Like, oh, this would be cool, that would be neat, this would be awesome. He was tapping me for my knowledge in the arts. He was tapping me for what I knew about my culture. And I told him, I confided in him. I says, look, Wayne, I don't know if I'm comfortable with being the cultural advisor. I mean, like, anyone else could probably do way better than I could ever, as a person who's knowledgeable about Hawaii and stuff. And he says, well, you say that you're not knowledgeable in these things, but from what I've seen, you reminded me of another friend that I had who said that he doesn't know anything about the Japanese culture. And when he'd say things and he'd talk about stuff, I'm blown away because of all the knowledge he has. And so that really opened my eyes too. That helped me to understand that even though I don't believe I know a lot, about something that I should know a lot about, he valued it. He valued what I felt was little. And that made me feel, first of all, scared to be in that position because I didn't want to mess up. I didn't want to diminish the Spooky Kine Investigations label because I don't know my stuff. I don't know my poop, right? But he's a smart dude, and I can't imagine he would have done it unless he knew that I could do it. So that's something that I will always hold deep in my heart, on how he trusted me to be a part of that, And you know what it did is it lit a fire under my butt, to learn more and to be a little bit more aware when people start doing lectures and stuff, and when we start going to different places. Like, we go with the school, with UH and whatnot, to go to these different places, not just for cleanup and community, but to also learn, about the places. And I became my ears were a lot bigger at that moment, because I'm not just doing it for a personal gain. It wasn't just that. It was actually trying to do my pal who believed in me, do him right, He believed in me, and I didn't want to tarnish that belief that he had in me, and I wanted to keep our team looking dignified, And so it was a really big opportunity that I'm just so grateful that he did for me. I'm getting my adrenaline is going right now because I'm thinking about all the things that we did together, and yeah, crazy stuff becoming a part of this group. We started to do talks, and we started to do tours, and it's kind of like really fledgling kind of stuff. We're like, first we were like part of people's tours, yeah. So people would invite us to come along with them on a tour. Lopaka Kapanuhi, Obake, and Joe Punohu with a group that he's with Hawaiian Huntings. My bad. I mean, like I didn't realize it, and I guess I should have asked. That was my bad. But I didn't realize that the Hawaiian Huntings group was actually a group of all A's, all leaders, and they would all get together, and each one of them would come up with a different place to investigate and go on. And some of the investigations that we went on, I just assumed, because Wayne was the leader of our group, I just assumed that Joe Punohu was the leader of the Hawaiian Hauntings group, but that was my bad. It was actually the group. Each person will do a different place to investigate, and they'd all go together as a team, but they all kind of like, they were all the heads of this group, and they all did things together like a family, but usually a family has a head. So that was my bad. So one of the videos that I had put on this channel when it was Real Paranormal Oahu, I says, big thanks to Joe Punohu for inviting us to his group. And then this woman that was from the group was just kind of upset at the fact that I said it was Joe's group, and she came onto the thing and commented saying that thank you to, I guess it was Ailina or somebody, but anyway, thank you to that person for organizing this particular excursion. And I was like, oh, I didn't know, you know what I mean? It's like, sorry about my ignorance, but I had no idea that each one of you guys was like the leaders of the group. It was not clear to me, and I did not realize that that's how it worked. But I don't remember these other people inviting us to come along to these investigations. I always remember it being Joe reaching out, lending us a hand to come and further our knowledge into this this very interesting, very intriguing part of our lives. Some people experience it, some people don't, and I don't know how to feel. I mean, like, would my life be a lot different if I didn't experience any of these things? Because I actually work next to somebody in the room beside me that I think she's one of those people that kind of pushes, because she doesn't want anything to do with the paranormal, the supernatural. She'll like push things away, and I think naturally she does that. Like, she has this aura that kind of just this light about her that just kind of moves these things away, because she really doesn't want to experience any of these strange activities. And so far, the only time that she's actually, because there's activity that happens in this classroom, like ever since I've been inside this room, there's been activity. And so she has activity that happens in her classroom as well. And her EA that's inside there, my friend Miss Jamie, she's always talking about these weird things. Even the kids, as soon as the teacher gets up and goes to the restroom or goes to lunch or goes someplace else and leaves the room, weird things will happen. Really strange things will happen in the room next door, and it's just so funny. So that kind of talks about like how I got involved with the Spooky Kine Investigation. It was all chance. It was all luck. I mean, or you can see it as all fate. It was all meant to happen. And it was meant to happen at that time, and not a moment sooner. I was supposed to become part of this group. It helped to fuel how I see the world and how I live in it. It was really a huge motivational boom to my existence. I was like, wow, I should know more of this stuff. Because if somebody just asks me, like, hey, what is that? What is that all about? And I just sit there and it's like, oh, I have no idea. Like, what is that all about? And I should know about those kinds of things, and I should be able to teach, people who come and visit, like, what it is. So there's a lot of times that I think, it would be nice. It would be nice to be super smart, to create a different way of living, so that our fellow man can make can live life easier. And I'm not talking about easier in the sense of doing less. I'm saying easier in the sense of not having to put up with the small things so that we can get a majority of what we want to do done. Because there's so many small things, but then I realized that the reason why this is happening in our lives, the reason why we have all these small problems and issues, is so that we can learn from those and get a better foundation. To have a strong foundation so that we finally get to the top, we don't teeter over. Our heads don't get so big that we fall over and we get hurt, don't know how to get back up. Just like a turtle on his back. In my life, it's been a lot of strange things and strange phenomenon, and I am so grateful again that I was asked to join in on Spooky Kine, because there were some times, man, I'd be like, man, what is going on? What is happening here? And after going on a couple investigations with the group, I was like, hey, did you hear that? Did you see that? And they're like, oh, why don't you play back the audio? Why don't you go check this? Why don't you go check that? And yeah, going back, listening to the same thing that I heard and that no one else had heard, it's mind blowing. It's like, do you hear that voice? So, yeah. In fact, I'm gonna go ahead and leave you folks with a story. So actually, my first book that I wrote, The Mo'owahini of Makalike Bridge here, this book was actually based upon one of the first tours that I took with Spooky Kine Investigations. Okay, so this lady right here in the book, in my story, her name is Pa'avai, and my experience with the mo'o was the evening we went on a we were invited on a tour with Obake. I believe we went with Obake, and what is the name of his channel now? Oh shoot, I can't remember the name of his channel, but I always try to watch his stuff. Like, his stuff comes out at random times, and he doesn't often give the times that he's going to be on. But what is his username on YouTube? Then you guys can also check him out too. Okay, I found it. Ghosts of Hawaii. Let's see. Welcome to Ghosts of Hawaii, a place where the reality of the paranormal is just that. No frills or fancy intros, just a search for the real ghost story within the many here in Hawaii. Join in for that and more right here on YouTube. So, yeah, so sorry, I just had to find that because in case you folks were interested in checking out his stuff. He's got a lot of stories. That guy's a wealth of paranormal knowledge. Good stuff. And he has guest speakers that come on too. Something that I wanted to do a while back. Like I said, didn't know how to really implement it. Wanted to, and maybe I will. That's something that's a goal of mine. But right now, this is what I'm offering, which is just me blabbing about certain aspects of the paranormal life that I lived. So anyway, I'm getting back to Obake. So we were invited on a tour, and this tour was in Kailua, right behind the YMCA, which is Ulupo. And there's a heiau back there, one of the biggest in Hawaii. And we went with the group, and it was kind of late at night. But as we were walking down toward the marsh, I had my recorder out. I had my trusty audio recorder. When I first started, I used to always use my flash camera, my not DSLR, my digital camera, as well as my audio, digital voice recorder, and that's how I'd catch most of my my paranormal activity. And so I remember we were walking down toward the marsh, Kauai Nui, and as we were heading down, and this was before they developed it into the lo'ikalo that they have down there now. As we were traveling down, I hear this kind of like weird sounds, just whistling like that, and I was like, "You guys hear that whistling?" It's like somebody's just whistling. And for us in Hawaii, we have this superstition Superstition. I don't really care for that word, superstition. I think it was taken out of context a lot. But basically, you don't whistle at night in Hawaii because it calls the spirits. Um, Whistling, I mean, any kinds of of any noises that'll be come hither to the other side, don't do it. But I hear this whistling. I'm like, that's kind of odd because you would think somebody that lived in Hawaii, like that would be your least knowledge. Like that's what you know not to do. Kind of like throwing rubbish on the floor. Everybody knows not to do it. People still do it, but you know that's because they're lazy. But I mean, like to whistle at night. I mean, you got to be going out of your way to be acting out, right? But anyway, we're traveling down this grassy path going towards the marsh, and we hear something walking in the bushes beside us. You know, like footsteps, large footsteps going down the path, and we'll get to a certain point, and when we stop, the footsteps stop beside us. I was like, oh, that's weird. Continue walking, footsteps come back. We stop, it stops. And it's funny because Wayne, he says, okay, guys, this is close enough. This is good enough where we're at. Okay. So we're just kind of checking things out. And here's the whistling. And turn around, make our way back up. And it's like funny because as we're walking away, the footsteps don't follow. You know, you don't hear the in the grass next to us. It stays inside the grassy area. We come back up, heading over, and all these people taking flash photography. And over time, I realized that, you know, the spirits don't appreciate when you take flash photography. So in case you guys want to, you know, capture ghosts on camera, don't use the flash. Apparently, it just annoys them. But my stomach starts feeling weird, starts doing flips and flops. And I look at Wayne. I'm like, I'm not feeling so hot, man. I think I gotta go. He says, oh, you're gonna go? And so he decides he's gonna follow me out. As we're all coming out and whatnot, I guess, you know, Phil was concerned. He says, oh, we're just gonna take a wait up there. And I didn't want to say anything, you know. I don't want to pull people out of their fun. It's like, oh, I got a cramp in my leg. Well, I gotta go home from the beach now. You know what I mean? How lame that is. And so I just like, well, my stomach was turning. I knew it wasn't because I had to poop. I knew it wasn't because, you know, something I ate. I knew it was because something around there was giving me that strange vibe, a nervousness, right? And so we come back up to the top and wait for the rest of the group to arrive. And when they finally do, you know, you hear that again. I'm like, what is that whistle? And so when Obake comes up, I still got my recorder going too. And it's funny because when he comes back up, we always do this, you know, this gathering and a prayer or just a solitary prayer before we leave any place that, you know, has either something attached to it or like it's a cemetery or something like that. We ask that nothing kind of follows us or whatever. You know, we give our little spiel. And so he had said, you know, he opened up the prayer. If there are any evil entities here, you don't have any permission to follow us home, which is great. It's good stuff, right? We're standing in a circle, giving ourselves a light. And as we're walking away from the area, we're traveling back down to our cars. And yeah, so I'm like mentioning this and this and whatnot, and the whistles, and it's like, oh, check the audio. Check the audio when you get home and see if you picked up on those whistles. Get in the car. Okay, shoots. Get in the car, and as soon as we're ready to drive away, the whistle followed us all the way from, you know, back at the Heiau, followed us all the way back to our cars. So I'm like, oh, yep, please don't follow me home. Thank you very much. Get home, listen to the audio, and you can hear us moving, and catch the footsteps, you know, walking beside us, and say, hey, you guys hear that? It sounds like footsteps. And then when it gets to the point, right before, you know, Wayne says, hey, over here is good enough, let's stop. Right before he says that, this female voice comes through, and it was only us three guys. Only had me, Wayne, and Matt. And this female voice comes on and says, in a slithery voice, stay back. And when I heard that on the audio, I was like, what the heck? It sounded like a snake woman, like a woman with a slithery, snaky-like tongue. And it was like, you could hear like the breathing first. It was like, stay back. like that, and I was like, holy smokes! But also on the recorder too, you could clear as day, you could hear the whistling, just following us. And so after the voice comes out and says stay back, then Wayne says, okay guys, I think this is good enough. We're as far as we want to go. So I'm like, Wayne has this ability to sense these things. It's just that he didn't experience it. He didn't realize that he was being told not to go any further, which is why he said not to go any further, which I thought was pretty amazing. But anyway, um, make our way back up to the top because my stomach is not feeling so hot. I'm listening to the recorder, and Obaki comes up and he starts his prayer, and he's like, if there are any evil entities here, you're not allowed to follow us home. This guy's voice, just comes out of nowhere and screams into my microphone, and we didn't hear it while we were in our prayer circle. Like, nobody was yelling during the prayer, but it's just that when I played the recorder back, you could actually hear this voice say, "What's my name?" And I was like, what the heck? This voice just comes out screaming into my recorder. So what's my name? And I was like, what? And then it calls back to like these exorcist movies and whatnot about how when you want to exorcise the demon, you have to know the name of the creature to send it away, to send it back, right? And so when this thing yelled, so what's my name? If you don't want me to come and follow you guys, tell me my name. Who am I? Who are you addressing? And that comes down to a lot of what I always believe is important when we go on these paranormal investigation, and that's ho'ihi. It's just respect, because these places are sacred. You're walking into like a beach, an open beach, with just the ocean crashing in front of you. You're walking into a forest with a small rock trail going up to a mountain. You're walking over to a friend's house whose doors are shut. He's not home, but you want to get in. That's basically what it is. You're trying to get into someone's home that they're not ready to receive you. And if they're not ready to receive you, you need to have the utmost respect to know when to stop. And so that's like one of the first things that I knew was apparent when it came to paranormal investigation. And I was having respect for things that we can't see or understand, because that's what we would expect from a stranger coming into our lives. People coming to Hawaii, right? Coming over to our island and just like making poo-poo all over the place. Making pilikia, having issue with certain things. Like, oh, we don't want to follow the speed rules. We don't want to follow the crosswalk rules. We don't want to, like, the bikes are my favorite, man. The people that do the biking, they're not even from here. And yet they come to all of our remote areas or country areas, and they block up our one-lane roads because they want to do these bike athlons. And it's like, we don't get no benefit as locals. We don't get no benefit from this besides traffic, And when they come in, they practice before these big things start happening. They really gum up the works. People are trying to get home from long days of work, getting stuck in traffic, and these bikers just want to come over here to the islands and just get a fresh breath of air while they're pedaling. That's what they want. And who's suffering for it? Not them. It's the people who are working, trying to get home with their food so their children can eat, so they can go to sleep and go back to school and start it all over again. But I digress. I'm just really appreciative that I was a part of Spooky Kine, and how much I loved and I love in love with being honored a place in that group. So with that was my entrance into Spooky Kine Investigations. Our next Mo'olelo Monday, I will be moving on to Spooky Kine Investigations Part 2. And this will be more about our strategies and going in. I'll tell some stories about us being inside the homes, businesses, and just outdoors. I know this one is a little rough because there was a lot of history, but this next part will have more stories that you guys can get the heebie-jeebies or the chicken skin goosebumps, whatever you want to call it. You can hear our experiences as our group on the next Mo'olelo Monday. And it's cool because we started off with so many people. John was a part of our group, John De Lima, our group. It's so weird for me to say our group because it was really Wayne's baby. Um, but anyway, I was a part of that group, so I'm gonna say it. Part of our group. Um, he was part of the Maui branch, which I thought was really cool. You know, having people on the other islands to do Spooky Kine. I mean, like there was so much potential, right? So much potential, and so he has so many stories too. Um, and then of course we had some newcomers, and I say newcomers because they came after me. I consider myself like the rookie, right? I was the rookie at the time when I joined the Spooky Kine Investigation. It seemed like everyone else was so established, and I was like the guy that was like in awe and wonder of all these different electronics and stuff like that. I mean, like I had some idea of how to use certain things because I was watching Ghost Hunters and all that kind of stuff, but you know, yeah, the whole idea of helping others to have life, because a lot of times these activities that would happen in their home are so detrimental that they people couldn't live. It's keeping them up all, and I know these experiences. I know how much of a toll they can take on you because they want so much attention. But why do they want this attention? What are they trying to tell you? What are they trying to express, right? And once you get down to the bottom of that story, then it's like, oh, maybe this was something that wasn't meant for me. Maybe it was meant for somebody else. Maybe I'm supposed to be telling this to somebody else. And that's why I feel like it's so important for me to share my story with you folks, because if it's going to affect you in a positive way, just like I was affected in a positive way joining this group, then that's awesome. That's super awesome. So I just wanted to say thank you folks for stopping by on our first Mo'olelo Monday. Can't believe that I did it. Well, we'll see when it gets uploaded. I'm not even sure if this thing is going to upload. It looks like it's almost an hour worth of video that I have to cut through. But yeah, we'll see you next time on our Mo'olelo Monday. This might have to be Mo'olelo Tuesday for the first time because I have to not only export it, but I have to upload it to YouTube. And who knows how long that's going to take. That could take forever. But anyway, I love you folks. Mahalo nui for stopping by. Ahui ho.